Hi, in this episode I'll be talking to Nick Caldwell about travel and medical insurance for divers. Over at BREW, Nick tells me how often he sees divers under or not insured at all on their travel insurance and how his company Westfield have a bespoke policy that caters specifically for divers travelling to diving destinations on diving holidays. Do you fancy a brew? Yeah, so is that your front room? Because I was going to say it's very office orientated, your front room.
It's like setting up a studio here, you know?
It's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, right. To make sure I got the right light in to get me good side and all that.
Oh no. Well, when I was doing them through the summer, you get light streaming through here, and then by the time we finished it, we almost pitch black. So I've got like lights here, lights there, but it's still quite dark. But to be fair, I don't show a lot of it because if there's a lot of cutting, the video's not great. So I mean, it's great that you've got that backdrop in there, but as long as I can hear you loud and clear and it records really well, that's the main thing. Because
and I was just thinking it's a better backdrop than my normal office.
So are you armed with a brew? Have you got yourself a coffee?
I poured myself a cup of jar. Although I think you should rename this. Have a pint or something.
Well, we did one a couple of weeks ago actually. Me and a couple of mates. One's out in Cyprus and one's down here. Bryce Norton, and because we did it a little bit later, and because we're mates, we called it Fancy a Beer, and we all had like a Corona each just for the try.
Well, that probably wouldn't project the right image, would it? So
So Nick, welcome to Fancy a Brew podcast. Thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you on, and it's been a while since we spoke, which was back in February at the Go Dive 2020, where you did your sales pitch along the lines of if we were going on an expedition. So I got different people, exhibitors that were there, and really helped me make what I think was quite a good film. But it was one of the first ones I'd ever done. So unfortunately, I didn't get the sound quite right. So there was you and Monty Halls that I was having to listen to several times over and actually put in like the dubbing across the bottom so everyone could tell me. But for me, I learned an awful lot from you that I had no idea.
No, sure.
So I'll just touch on quickly how I came across you. Short of that is there's a dive site up near us called Cape and Ray, and they have their own sort of it's called the official Facebook page of Cape and Ray or something like that. And people are always waffling on about different things about diving. And somebody was asking what kind of holiday insurance do they need to go diving, and there was obviously your normal like post office and all the rest of it. But in big capital letters, somebody was harping on all about Westfield insurance and how
that's what we like to hear,
and how it covered literally everything you could possibly want. So, without further ado, if you can give us a bit of an introduction to who you are, not too much about your business, and we'll obviously try and cover that throughout the series of the brew.
And just a little bit about me, I suppose, which is interesting because it's actually quite a fascinating story, I hope. But it was actually my father who got involved in insuring scuba divers back in the early 70s. Right. We were one of, if not the first insurance brokers that specialised in scuba diving insurance. And he was quite a proud man, as we all are back in those days, and insuring all the dive clubs and the individuals throughout the country. And he threw his little boy into the local, it was a BZAC club actually back then. And anyway, at the tender age of 8, that little boy was, which happened to be me, of all things. And so I got involved in diving at a very young age, and a bit like we all do. But then when I left school, I think it was probably I was 17, I came straight to the business. And I'm now 48, and it's all I've actually known and all I've ever done. And as daft as it sounds, or sad as it sounds, but it's actually quite good without blowing my own trumpet too much, but it's quite good to have a guy like me in the industry that has spent and devoted his whole life to the scuba diving and insurance industry to boot. So I like to think I've got a pretty good understanding of what's needed and what's regarded, and just acknowledging that a lot of normal off-the-shelf type insurance policies really don't cater specifically for our world of diving.
Great stuff. So let's cut to the chase. How bad has COVID been?
Well, you can imagine that's been it's been a bit of an interesting year for us all, really, isn't it? Especially when it comes to things like travel and going off on holiday, in many other ways, of course. But needless to say, we as a company, as Westfield, it probably represents about 50% of our monthly income is through travel insurance. So needless to say, it has been very difficult, obviously. Fortunately, it's not just travel insurance, our book of business. We deal hugely with the marine account as well, and all the clubs and all their boats, etc. Right. Fortunately, bless you all, you've all been renewing gracefully, and it's all been keeping things afloat, because I have to say, without that type of income, you would have lost a whole lot, and it's questionable whether guys like me would still be available and around the following year. So I've geared myself up as best as I can do financially, and we're looking forward to trying to hope that we get a better season next year, as it were. As we all do, obviously. But it's been difficult right at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic. From a point of view of the calls that I was receiving, I would say in the first week, which was the tail end of March, wasn't it? I think the pandemic really was announced on the 11th of March, and it was maybe widely accepted and acknowledged by the 15th. But by the first week, I was getting calls constantly, about 140 telephone calls a day. Can you believe it? But I was taking that many calls, and it was all about everybody showing a concern that their holiday might be cancelled. What happens if it's cancelled? And then the following week, week 2, was the calling me with the realisation their holiday had been cancelled. And then week 3 was, of course, actually trying to talk to people that were already abroad that were needing to try and get back home, of course. And so it probably came to everybody's surprise and fear, I suppose, that travel insurance doesn't generally pick up on cancellation charges if the tour operators have to cancel. If the tour operator can't offer their product anymore, I mean, like anybody, if you'd bought a new car, etc., and you'd given them lots of money and you were expecting your new car to be delivered in a month's time, and then 2 days before it was being delivered, they said, sorry, it's not available anymore, we can't get it. It's the same as a holiday not being available.
You'd expect a full refund, wouldn't you?
Yeah, they can't provide the product at the end of the day. So tour operators are generally regulated by ABDA and backed by ATOL. And part of that whole regulation process is that they would normally, under normal circumstances, if they can't provide their product, offer you an alternative destination or an alternative date. Or if neither of that was accepted by you, they would offer you a full refund of your money, which is good to go, really. Of course, back in April, they issued, I don't quite know the legalities behind it all, so forgive me, but they issued some sort of directive to the tour operators, not putting pressure on them to have to give monetary refunds to people, but to postpone their holiday to sort of mark it up for next year when they could hopefully.
Oh yeah, they were talking of like gift receipts and stuff. Not gift receipts, was it? Like a note. Yeah, vouchers. That's the one. Come back next year and you can have it for the same price, won't it?
Yeah, that's it. You've got it. And I think the reason why they were doing that is just the acknowledgement that if they were trying to give refunds, they would have gone bust very quickly. And of course, it wouldn't have helped sort of 90% of the customer base. You know, might have helped a few out, but not all of them. So it was a far better approach to just postpone everybody's holidays. So that's what they've generally done. Where the danger was for people is that have booked holidays independently, not through tour operators. And dare I say it, in our diving, our scuba diving world, that actually represents quite a big percentage. A lot of people do nowadays book independently, and they don't always go through tour operators. And I hope this has sort of highlighted the importance and the need for people to book through tour operators to have that added protection, because ultimately when you are booking it independently, you're acting as your own tour operator, of course, and it's really down to the discretion of that holiday company, that firm abroad in another place, as to what agreement they might have in place with you as to whether they're likely to give you refunds if you can't get there and all that sort of thing. And so unfortunately, yeah, it probably caught a few people out, that. And I think there is then the question is, can they be covered under travel insurance? Because I suppose my fault is always, there's lots of things that can go wrong on holiday, of course, from all different walks of life. But it's fair to say travel insurance, like all insurance policies, it's not designed to cover absolutely everything and anything that might possibly go wrong. Insurance is generally designed to cover specific sections of cover, and those specific sections, that they might have the individual perils in it, what they choose to cover within that as their terms and conditions, if you like. And I suppose in this situation, the one that we were all interested in was the cancellation and curtailment section, which we commonly see of and hear of a title within travel insurance. They cover cancellation and curtailment, and it's trying to understand, I suppose, what that actually provides, what that gives to you. And the idea behind it, generally speaking, has been that it's designed to protect you if you had to instigate the reason of the cancellation. You couldn't attend your holiday because you had gone down seriously ill or had an injury, or a member of your family has, and you couldn't then go on your holiday. Or if you were summoned to jury service or witness attendance in court, or if you've been made redundant and you couldn't afford to go. And so realistically, what you're sort of saying on all of that is that it's designed cancellation cover is if you had to instigate the reason of the cancellation, not in this situation that it was the tour operators, or the holiday firms or airlines not being able to offer their product at the end of the day. So yeah, it was very much down to them. So unfortunately, that did hurt a few people in the early stages. I have to say that was the concern, that was the questioning I was getting probably within the first month. But then as time went on, there was enough media coverage about it and people talking to friends and family, and people were beginning to understand that being the process. And so, and by then, tour operators were, stepping up the game to offer assistance, as it were. But yeah, it's been difficult. 140 calls a day, so I was going home quite frazzled, quite honestly. And you get home at 9 o'clock at night, put the telly on, and they're still talking about the coronavirus on the telly, and you almost just wanted to watch something a bit like comedy or something to get over it,
Yeah, it's weird. It seems to have gone by that portion of the year, that percentage of the year, so fast. I wouldn't say when I saw you in February that it seems 10 minutes ago, but it seems strange towards the middle to late February, whenever it was, that it was only a few weeks later that the world sort of came to a halt. Yeah, we weren't talking about it then at all. It was the last thing on anybody. We'd heard about it in the news. Yeah, it was moving around the world, but it was the last thing on our lips. And then a month later,
all
the brakes on.
And I think I'm probably fair to say that I, maybe like a few others, thought right at the beginning, it's a bit of a storm in a teacup, and a blowover, and typical media and social media, it was all been a bit blown out of proportion and so on. But as the weeks, the months stepped on, you could see the knock-on effect and the devastation it was having right across the world as a result of it. So yeah, it has been really difficult, I suppose. But I suppose over the years, what's helped us in business in general is that two things I like to think of is one, that because this is such a niche market, scuba diving, we are able, or I'm able, to offer that personal service and have a conversation with people. And I'm on the phone to someone, one after another. It might be a 5-minute call, or it might be a 45-minute call, but you're able to offer that level of personal service, whereas I think that quite often in today's world that has been lost. And when it comes to niche markets like this, people do need the advice and the guidance. And as I said right at the beginning, a lot of standard, talking of travel insurance, but a lot of standard travel insurance policies, they just don't cover the scuba diving properly.
No.
Unfortunately. And people think they do. I still get calls. I mean, I've had one today where somebody's like it, and my bank covers this and they cover that, and you really need to look into it.
Well, that nicely segues me on to question 2.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be an interview, this. It's too formal.
No.
So anyway, so then, Nick, tell me, what mistakes do scuba divers often make when it comes to travel insurance? But I mean, joking aside, like my last policy, I think, that wasn't with my bank. My bank used to charge me £10 a month for my account, and I got travel insurance, mobile phone insurance, AA breakdown, blah 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 blah. But if I went on holiday, I'd be just going on holiday.
Yes.
Now that I'm a relatively serious diver, my next holiday is to Mexico at Christmas. But we've only got 3 days worth of diving booked for the whole 2 weeks. We're just going on a guided cabin dive. That said, next May, when we're going to the Red Sea, we're on a Blue O2 liverboard, diving 4 dives a day. So that's probably 20 dives. Massive difference there. So,
you're quite right. I suppose where it's changed over the years, if you like, is that years ago, travel insurance companies used to exclude scuba diving altogether. They just didn't like it. It's treated as a hazardous sport and wouldn't cover it. Nowadays, it's fair to say that scuba diving has become a much more easily accessible sport. More and more people are doing it as just a general thing when they're on holiday. They jump up on the beach and have a quick try dive with the dive centre at the end of the pier, and it's almost become like a bucket list type adventure, whereas back in my day when I was younger, the only way to become a scuba diver was to join your local diving club, and go through weeks on end and months on end of training, etc. But so I suppose now, because it's just a general holiday pastime, travel insurance companies in general are finding it very difficult to carry on excluding it, if you like. And so in their title, if you like, or they have a list of maybe different pursuits and sport activities that they cover, and they might very well refer to scuba diving, and you think, oh, that's good, then I'm covered. All right. However, they then put on their various terms and conditions associated to it, and the most classic one that we seem to all be focused onto is depth limits, and over the years I've seen them as low as 9 meters. Can you believe it? It's generally now 30 meters they talk of. However, depth limits is not the be all and end all. There are other things that can coincide with it, and the most common one that I have feedback on from people is that their travel insurance, through various companies, which I won't mention. But
go on, be a shit house. tell us who it is.
I have to be a bit careful, don't I? I always have to say they may not cover. They may do this, they may not, but I sort of know myself really that they probably don't at all. So the most common one actually is that they often say that they'll only cover the scuba diving if a holiday wasn't primarily booked as a diving holiday. Yeah. So that meaning that they really are relying on the guy who jumps up on the beach to have a quick go at it. And they might have said 30 metres, but needless to say, they've then got that caveat in there saying, so you going on a liverboard holiday would be useless to it, you see. The other big common one I see on there is they often want you with an instructor or a guide, which isn't really always feasible for us guys. And the other one on there, which probably alarms me more, because the ones I've mentioned already, at least they can be read in the, when you do look at it. The one that isn't there, that's so obvious, is when it talks about sea rescue cover. And most travel insurance policies don't cover sea rescue cover. So actually I was about to say the elderly, I shouldn't, but the majority of people that like to go on cruise ship holidays, etc., and they're relying on their, say, bank insurance, etc., they don't actually always realise that sea rescue isn't covered on there.
No way.
And yeah, and a lot of travel insurance won't cover sea rescue. So again, we're okay on it. We've had it added in, of course, because of the scuba diving connotation. So God forbid if you did need things like sea rescue or hyperbaric chamber treatment or repatriation, then that's all been included in there for you. So I think in answer to your question, what's the biggest mistake people make is they just assume all the time, because dare I say, it can't be bothered to read it properly, or even if they ring up the company, not wishing to be too derogatory to the call member centre of staff, but they don't overly know themselves. They're not experienced in the field. They've not been brought up through the industry like I have. Yeah. And so when you start talking about things like hyperbaric chamber treatment, they've never even really heard the phrase, the terminology of the word hyperbaric. And it's very difficult for them to advise thoroughly on it. And so I would suggest, to avoid doing the worst thing, is not paying attention to your travel insurance, because if things do go wrong, it can be such huge sums of money, of course. It's like remortgage the house type money.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, that you need to be insured. I mean, forget like losing your bags and your baggage. And that's the other thing that makes me laugh often is, you do get a lot of those claims where people's baggage has gone missing, or they've had to cancel their holiday, or this has happened or that's happened. But me personally, I think that sort of pales into insignificance, because as much as it hurts and it's annoying that you've lost something, it's not the end of the world. But when you suddenly got a 30 or 60,000 pound medical bill, that's real different levels of concern, and you need to make sure you're insured for it.
Not everybody's got that change in the ashtray of 60 grand, have they?
No. Yeah. Over the years, I've had a few nasty ones, that have added up to an awful lot of money, and it's difficult when I'm at the dive shows, for instance, and when I'm on the phone. You're mindful of all of those ones that you were just dealing with sort of a couple of weeks ago, but you don't necessarily want to pass that information on to people, because of course you don't want to scare people and put them off the sport. But ultimately it is a dangerous sport that we are involved in, and you need to make sure that you're properly insured, because it's not just your livelihood, it's the families as well that can be affected.
Well, to that end, I'm sort of taking the next step in my progression of diving. I'm going the more technical route. I've just ordered my first rebreather, hopefully my only ever rebreather, because they're flipping expensive.
Yeah, they are.
So I'm sure you're well aware that it's not so much how many dives you've done on a rebreather, it's the amount of hours that you spend on it makes you more proficient. And from one course to the next, or mod 1 to mod 2, they want about 50 hours. So it's pretty much put away your open circuit kit and strap on your rebreather forever now, to make it pay, if nothing else. But joking aside, because I'm going to the Red Sea in May, and who we're going with, and there's someone else or potentially 2 others diving rebreathers while we're there. Yeah, they do cover us with a nice little rebreather technical package, so we can take them and build up them hours in warmer, nicer water, and so on, within the sort of caveats of no decompression limits and all the stuff around sort of sport and recreational diving. What kind of package specialities do you do, or is required for me to dive that abroad on holiday?
Yeah, there's probably 2 things maybe to consider. Number one, we touched on the travel insurance, and when it comes to technical diving, often the concern on that is what is the depth limit? As I was saying, everybody is focused on it. We actually don't put on a specific depth limitation. We just have a requirement that you are diving in accordance with the current safety recommendations of your diving association. So if you're diving with a technical diving agency and you're diving within their safety guidelines, then yes, we are okay with it. Obviously, if you're stepping outside of their safety guidelines and you're recklessly diving, then needless to say, it's hard to expect somebody to be, exposed to that risk, as it were.
As they say around here, it's tough titty.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And the other issue on the technical diving is a lot of technical divers like to do cave diving, and I have to say we don't particularly like cave diving, unfortunately. As predominantly travel insurance providers, companies, they normally have always exclude potholing of all things. And if you're going to exclude potholing, they're definitely not going to be happy with cave diving, really.
No.
You mentioned earlier, actually, about cavern diving. There is obviously the difference there. If you're going into a cavern, I think the cenotes out in Mexico,
that's the one, yeah, that's where we're going.
Yeah, we're absolutely fine with that. It's best that we know so we can endorse it on the policy, but we are okay. But it's when you're really penetrating into a cave system, then it's not for us, unfortunately. So as far as the travel / medical insurance, again, not to assume your normal standard travel insurance is going to be adequate. We can cater for that properly for you. The other thing that you might like to give thought to is the value of your equipment that you're taking with you as well. In your case, we're talking of quite a high value with the rebreather. Even when people have got their normal diving equipment, etc. Again, most travel insurance policies will exclude sports equipment entirely. Our travel policy, it covers sports equipment like the normal baggage cover, but that's very low limits, to be honest. It's only up to £2,000 in total, but it has a limit of £300 on any one item. So that's no good when it comes to things like rebreathers, etc. It equally won't cover the equipment whilst it's in use as well. So if you're in the middle of a dive and you drop your torch or something daft, they're not going to cover that sort of thing under travel insurance. So what we do market is we also have available to us a specialist diving equipment insurance policy, which is nothing to do with travel. It's not medical insurance. It's just purely designed to cover your diving equipment. And it's an annual policy, which is designed to cover it all year round for your UK diving as well as when you take it abroad. And it can cover it to whatever value it's worth, of course. So when you talk about your rebreather, if you're needing to put the rebreather there, that could be covered, because the worry is you're going off on a flight. If it went missing or got damaged by the airline, at the present moment, as it stands, you probably have got no insurance for it, you see. Some people have their equipment insured under their household insurance, but again, the majority of household insurers may not cover it while it's in use or have limitations on it.
Well, you see, when I was away last year in the Red Sea, my camera flooded, and I was covered on my house insurance, but to the sole value of £1,000 per piece, which was still enough to actually cover me.
That was good that they did it, to be honest. However, a lot of policies don't cover them in use, you see.
No, whereas the rebreather itself, being one item rather than two, the camera and the housing, the rebreather being one, it's like eight times that value. So definitely bearing that in mind. Even if it's in the UK, if it floods here in the UK, I'm wanting a better phrase, up shit creek.
Yeah, indeed. Well, they on the diving equipment policy, certainly if it went missing or got damaged by the airline, then that's a sort of peace of mind for you. Whereas often things like household insurance or indeed travel insurance just won't be adequate enough for it. If things flood and become a problem, actually under that policy we do cover accidental damage, in the sense that if that accidental damage has then caused it to flood, so you hit it on the side of the boat, or you're in the middle of a dive and you hit it on a coral or rock face or whatever and it's flooded it, then yes, it will cover that sort of thing. But there is one of the conditions on there that if it floods for no real apparent reason other than you've probably put the thing together wrong, or indeed the manufacturers might have done, if it's an inherent fault, a manufacturer's fault, it should really be down to the manufacturers, of course, just principle, really. And unfortunately, they won't cover it if you've put the thing together wrong, as it were. So it's got to be as a result of accidental damage for that side of it to be covered for you. it's all round good cover, because the irony of all that is that they also cover emergency jettison, and accidental loss. So not that you're really going to accidentally lose your rebreather.
I hope not.
It could be your torch, you've accidentally dropped it, or you're de-kitting when you get back in the boat and you lose something overboard, etc., or they're hoisting you back up in the boat and you lose it overboard. Amazingly enough, we do actually cover that sort of thing. But it has been known. I had a couple of ribs, I keep saying last season, but I think it was probably the year before now, where they turned over. And, they say hit a freak wave, but every wave can be a freak wave, can't it? But get a couple of waves, and of course the whole rib turned over, and the individual divers in the boat lost their equipment. And of course the boat insurance doesn't cover people's own personal belongings. Passengers in there, doesn't cover their personal belongings being lost, and so it's very much down to the individuals to have that insured. And so I think a couple of rebreathers went in those scenarios.
I bet they did as well.
yeah.
My spur rebreather went in as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the extra one.
Yeah.
So it's a good all-round policy. So these insurances that we've designed, I like to think that they're as good as out there that you get these days. There is obviously I'm not the only person on the market. There is others, and I suppose in a way that's quite nice, because there is at least a bit of choice. Some people would like to deal with us, some people might not, and there is choice between, at least there's a couple. But it is a very high risk business. It does surprise me that there is only the two of us doing it.
I think it's good to have a bit of competition, because it drives you to be better at what you're doing. So
absolutely,
and for you, it's the personal aspect, getting on the phone, doing stuff like this, going out to the dive shows, being in conjunction. Are you still with Aqua Association, is it? SAA?
That's right, yes indeed, So the SAA, they very kindly approached me. The SAA is the Aqua Association. They approached me a good number of years ago now, must be nearly 10 years ago, as to whether or not I could coincide with them for their membership. And we have done. We're quite happy to pass on a bit of discount for members of the Aqua Association. So that's helpful to them and me, if you like, as well. But it's not earth-shattering amounts, but every bit helps, as it were, really. And you've got different associations throughout the industry, different insurances, different travel agents, and all that. And at least it is nice that it has got an element of choice for people, of course. But I have to say, it's not a massive market. Of course, not that I'm greedy, but I'd never be a millionaire out of this game. That's for sure. There's not that many divers in your local town, as it were. But we're dealing with people all over the country for obvious reasons.
I suppose it's hard trying to. Everyone needs some kind of holiday or travel insurance, but for people to actually find you if they're not knowing that you're available.
Yes, you're quite right. Thank you. It's something that I struggle with a little bit, and over the years, what had maybe worked for me, if I go back about 18 years ago, I started advertising in the classified section of magazines, and I think it was a secret answer, if you like, as I think maybe insurance is one of those sort of businesses. People would look at the classified, or they would start the back of the magazine like we often do, and we would stick out there. And so actually I felt that did very well. And over the years I've obviously do display adverts in some magazines. Some months you might manage to do a full page or half page or whatever. But ultimately, my marketing expense is knocking on about £2,500 a month, and it's a lot of money, because obviously when I sell an insurance policy, I don't earn all that money myself. We only take a very small commission of it, and that's got to run all my costs and pay ourselves and pay the advertising. It's a big expense, quite honestly. And as the years have progressed on, it's fair to say, which maybe we all knew would happen eventually, but the hard print of magazines isn't quite as valuable I don't think, as it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But to try and transition that monthly spend into online advertising I still don't completely believe online advertising is that wonderful either. And so we do a little bit of pay-per-click on Google and all this sort of thing. But you're quite right in saying, how do people know that we're here? But it always sort of upsets me when I speak to somebody on the phone and they've been diving 20 or 30 years and they've never heard of us. And I think, how is that possible? You know, I've spent all that money on my marketing and my advertising, and I suppose years ago, in the early years, the dive clubs used to have 50 plus memberships.
Yeah.
There was a lot of personal recommendation and a lot of people out there talking about you. And I think there's a danger now. A lot of the dive clubs, dare I say it, bless them, are struggling with membership and numbers. And obviously, when they've only got 10 members, 12 members, you're not getting as much, you know, recommendation.
Well, even with this year,
they're talking.
Yeah. Well, this year, so my dive clubs, it's quite a good one. Very strong. Routinely, people would turn up to the pool sessions or to the social club where they meet on a Wednesday.
Good. Yeah.
But because of lockdown, they started doing Zoom meetings. Well, there's quite a few that don't want to do Zoom. There's quite a few that can't do Zoom, and there's also a few that have got no interest in just sitting here, just chatting. They only came in because they wanted a lecture, or they wanted to just see what's going on next weekend, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
So that, and then the sort of paper press of magazines is all gone digital because their funding's been cut because nobody's put commercials in.
You imagine people like me have stopped all our advertising.
Absolutely.
And you know, bless them. I suppose this is a wave effect, dare I say it, excusing the pun, but it's a wave effect. And they're almost at the bottom of the line, the advertising side of it. They're going to really struggle, I would have thought.
And then obviously the knock-on effect then is still nobody's travelling, or a reduced number of travellers, so it's got a massive impact in that respect as well. No one knows about you, or not as many people are seeing about you, not as many people are needing you, so it's got to be that the pit of despair.
It is, So you're quite right. You're echoing my worries. So I do worry about it a bit as to where the future marketing can go, because I do see it that a lot more people in the industry, and I hate to say it because I've been close to it myself for all these years, but it is a changing in tide, and I think that nowadays there are a lot of people that are just the holiday makers. You know, it's almost like a bucket list thing. You know, like when I'm out and about and you talk to friends or you meet people and say, "Oh yeah, I tried diving once a couple of years ago. I was on holiday and so," but they would have never been able to say that 20 years ago.
No,
it just wasn't available to people, you know. And I think a lot of people have sort of been there, done that, got a t-shirt, not really too interested in it anymore. And whereas back in the day, it was the dive clubs and you're all talking, and it was a growing industry. As whereas I see it that type of clientele is a reducing industry at the moment. But on the flip side of that is all these other guys having a quick go at it while they're on holiday. That is trying to get out to them as from a marketing point of view, which is difficult.
Well, short of putting you out on this, so my second sort of time you've been on my YouTube, and then obviously
thank you
as a podcast. You know, I'll do my little bit to help you.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we like to hear. So thank you. But it's like guys like your good self, and likewise with my customer base, bless you all, is that you're busy waving the flag for me and talking to people, and it is that recommendation and talking to people, because even if you just drop that slight element of doubt without sort of over preaching to people, but if it's an element of doubt in their mind that their particular coverage isn't really the proper type of coverage is available, they're going to think twice, you know, and that's all I can ask for, really. So thank you.
Cool. Well, in wrapping up then, do you want to kind of summarise the main difference between your sort of standard travel medical insurance and then the sort of plethora that I would get from a policy to do with what we've just been talking about from yourself?
Yeah, And forgive me, not wishing to repeat myself too much, but yeah, it is just the acknowledgement that standard travel policies do not cover you properly. There are lots of exclusions on there when it comes to the medical side of it. Needless to say, we've added in a few extra what I'd call frills and fancies when it comes to like loss of diving equipment or loss of diving days through illness, etc. But ultimately, the biggie, I think, in most people's mind is to be adequately covered from a medical point of view. And so, our policies do cover sea rescue, which other policies may not cover. They will cover things like air ambulance and the hyperbaric chamber treatment. We don't have a specific depth limit on it. You just need to be diving as per the safety standards of your diving association. As well as, again, standard type insurance policies that a lot of people have got, whether they be through ones that they've purchased separately, although there might still be an off-the-shelf through a national type company, or indeed whether they think they're getting it free through their bank accounts or credit cards or something, they'll often find that there are lots of terms and conditions and problems when you look closely into it. So, but yeah, as always, people are more than welcome to give me a call as and when they're free and when they're ready, and I can go through it. But I sort of think that travelling this year is struggling a little bit, isn't it? So it might be that we're all looking forward to something next year.
Well, that's it. You hear that so often. It's either COVID or roll on next year. They kind of go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But I've got a website which we might have mentioned earlier, but if you don't mind me saying, it's under the website address of divinginsuranceuk.com. So I think that's an easy one, Diving Insurance UK. That's who we are and what we're about, divinginsuranceuk.com. My telephone number is 01483 237 827. So more than welcome, as I say, give me a call, make contact, and I can run through it. And as I say, I like to think that I can just offer a little bit of general chit-chat and advice and help to people from experience. You know.
Gleaming. All right, Nick, thanks for having me.
All right, yeah, take care.
See you later, buddy. Take it easy.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye.
So that brings to an end episode 32 with my friend Nick Caldwell. Links to all the things we discussed are in the podcast notes. You've been listening to Are You a Scuba Diver Fancy a Brew podcast with me, Andy the Northern Diver. You can find more scuba related content on my YouTube channel. The link is in the podcast notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. If there's someone or something you'd like us to discuss, let us know via our Facebook page. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.